So I am so glad to be back in Beijing, back in China. It's just a peaceful place. It's just got a peaceful feel to everything. Even take the traffic here. The traffic, it just seems quieter because of, I think, the amount of electric cars and bikes on the road. There's no police sirens, ambulance sirens going off, horns honking. Incidentally, the Chinese EV industry is world leading now. But there is lots of traffic in Beijing, but somehow it just seems more peaceful, more organised, even though I know that that is not the case. Traffic in Beijing is just more, I don't know, at peace with the fact that there is a traffic jam and it will get moving as and when it needs to. And bikes and cycles, electric bikes, they just weave in and out the cars like water being poured into a container of rocks. It just seems to work, even though when I look at it, it just shouldn't. Actually, I've arrived back in Beijing as the temperature dropped. So yesterday it was quite cold. It was about 0 degrees, I think. It might get as high as 10 degrees today. But the streets, as I have said many times before, are more clean and so much more peaceful. I really just do not feel threatened at all walking anywhere in Beijing. In fact, anywhere I've been in China. I've even been to the controversial area of Xinjiang and walked the streets there, and I felt very safe. People looked at me more in surprise, curiosity, and they wanted to say hello as they seen a big daft arse Scottish person walking around their backyard. But yet, I really felt safe. And by the way, when I say controversial Xinjiang area, that is only because the Western media makes it so controversial with all the claims they make about that area, Xinjiang. And while making these claims, ignoring the actual factual documented incidents of what they accuse others of happening, it's there right in front of their face, right in front of their noses in other places. It's insane. I sometimes think the world is going mad. It's all smoke and mirrors. I just sat down and I realise I'm next to a building site here, so I might eventually move again. But when I was back in the UK, and when I was in Madrid actually, I felt unsafe while walking around at times. There were moments where I was unsure of the area and of the people who were around me. Admittedly, I felt unsafe due to groups of migrants on the street. Now, I do think we should not have unchecked immigration, but equally I don't think we should be destroying other people's countries with our desire to constantly cause war and conflict. The truth, really, when I was thinking about it, the truth be told, with the groups of immigrants, they were actually doing nothing to make me feel unsafe. And actually I then started to question if I was feeling that way because of my biases brought on by the social media overload that I was currently experiencing. And the reason why I say social media overload is that one of the big differences when I go back to the UK is the ability to freely surf away on the social media. When I'm in China, I don't engage in much of the local social media, which there are many, but because I don't fully understand the language, obviously, then I don't really get right into it. But trust me, Chinese social media is full on, and although again, more positive on the social media, and it's also full of more learning stuff, so it's not quite as controversial as the UK. But when I'm back in the UK, I can get fully engaged into social media and lose myself and actually get overloaded on it. And it's not good for your health, your mental health, especially when you are so much, there's so much bullshit and nonsense and lies on there. I saw a picture that someone posted of a dirty train in China. It was the usual China hating update, and I've been on hundreds of trains in China, hundreds of metro lines, and I have never seen what they showed on this picture. It was just nonsense. On the other hand, I've been in the USA, and what I've seen on the streets is exactly what I saw in the picture, and it's again crazy. The streets in the US and UK, for the matter, are filled with homeless people in desperate situations. But again, some idiot in social media is trying to blame China for that homelessness and the drug situation in America, problems in the UK. I always go back to my mate Donkey, who often says to me, Ian, just remember, social media is not real life. Although sometimes I think, is it the real thoughts of people, because it goes unchecked, so they can say what they want to say without any social constraints or moral contract with other people if you're talking face to face. Anyway, it's noisy here. I think I'm going to move. So I was just walking there, and I thought I want to stop and just add to the feeling I had when I was back in the UK. And to be honest, everyone in the UK just felt so tense, so angry about everything, and there is this mindset, this desire to go to war with everyone and anyone everywhere. I mean, where is that coming from? I was seeing just open, blasé talk about nuclear war and how we should just start it by standing up to the aggressive regimes, which I find very ironic actually, because the Western countries and allies are the most aggressive regimes when you actually stop and look at the details and look back on the more recent history. Often, to be honest, the cry for going to war is from some cold and creepy wee politicians that would happily send our sons and daughters, your sons and daughters, off to war to die for them while they are very comfortably snug in their safe haven somewhere. Anyway, politics in the West seems to have aggressively fractured, and there is nowhere more obvious than in the whole Trump and Harris conversation. The choices for the American population is pretty bleak, and I always laugh when I hear about the Democrats who have morphed into some sort of Democratic Republican Party. In fact, they've all just morphed into something that I think we all suspected, that there is very much one party that seems to represent the establishment. The two parties have really just morphed together, and now that single party goes on about saving democracy when their very own candidate, Harris, is not exactly put forward in any real democratic way in the way the whole process fell. As I said before, irony is alive and kicking in the West. As for Trump, wow, I'm left speechless at times with what he says and how he acts. What a choice. As I said, the American people do have. Personally, I would go for Jill Stein. She seems to be wanting to reduce war and to take the money that's spent on war and spend that on the American people. I think that's a good idea. Anyway, I'll talk about the UK in a minute. It's noisy here. So I made it to the local park. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful day, maybe later this afternoon, but now around lunchtime, still pretty cold, although the sun is up. Anyway, I was talking about the UK. So the UK is in even more of a mess, I think, than other countries in Europe and certainly America. It's economically negative, or slightly growing, as they say. It's maybe flat. The new government, which is in power just for a few months, they're just in the door. They're already seeing their approval rating plummet. They weren't exactly voted in with a strong popular vote, bear in mind. I think 33.7% of the voting public voted for them. Bear in mind, of the 100% of people that could vote, there was only about 59.8 or something turnout, so they weren't exactly given a tremendous mandate to do stuff. And I can understand that the people in the UK are just exhausted by the whole thing. I also understand that the people in the UK are beginning to doubt that vote and voting in the Labour Party, because they're very much the same as what's already been there. After 14 years of austerity under the Tory government, we now have a Labour government with a central tenant which is very similar to the previous government, which is more austerity. Go figure. Because of that, I think people are exhausted. I think that also they're very unsure of that leader of the Labour Party. Very much like Kamala Harris, they're missing that likeability factor. The Labour Party under Keir Starmer at this moment in time, they're just not that popular. Their latest move is to restrict heating allowance for the elderly as we come into one of possibly the worst winters in a long time, and also to clamp down on the welfare support for people, and possibly provide the diet drug coming from America, Ozempic, as a giveaway on the NHS at a high cost. Now, I can understand how they rack up and reason on both of these policies amongst some of the other policies, but they're just bad policies from a timing and a communication and a marketing point of view, and also I would say from a moral standpoint. I am sure there are some further questions to be asked about this Labour Party, but at the moment the jury's out whether they're going to make that much of a difference. Interesting enough, when I return from a visit to the UK, I feel that I'm a little bit more tense myself, a wee bit more angry, maybe a wee bit more cynical, and it takes me just a little bit of time to adjust and chill out to the pace of a safe life in a progressive China. Come to the park, that helps. Some good news though is that I can see the British Foreign Secretary, a guy called David Lammy. He's now sitting down to discuss future plans with the representatives of China, which is a good thing. Hopefully we can see some movement there in the relationship between China and Britain, especially I believe because the British economy is on its knees and the Chinese economy is always going to bounce back. Other awesome news was the Elon Musk rocket launch and return back to the docking station. I've got to say that was smart. As someone who loves the idea of space travel, I was impressed by that. That was very, very cool. However, on the other side of that, Elon Musk's launches were other launches at the same time, same week, where the robo-taxis, robot buses, human-like robots, all the people in the West were very impressed by that. But I found myself sitting beside people and saying to people in the UK that you do realise that we have this stuff in China on the streets functioning right now. You do realise that we've got robot buses and taxis and so on, and automated transport and robots that are fantastic. I do think people are getting a bit fed up with me pointing out that China do a lot of this stuff, a lot of this positive stuff that you think that China don't do. I think people are getting a little bit fed up with me saying, dear, China's not what you think, it's very advanced. I see people pull that face when I mention it. I just wish people, to be honest, would take the time to look beyond the Western media headlines, which is all anti-China at the moment. And if you do take that time and you do look beyond the headlines, then you will see that China demonstrates, for me, just another way of doing things. Now, it's not perfect, but it's another way of doing things. It's another way of living a life happily in a progressive society that supports people, supports the community. Anyway, you might also be getting fed up with me going on about how positive China is. This is me, Ian, in Beijing, in a park, just about to go chill out, get into that China mindset. Take care of yourself. Peace out.